If you've struggled with stress, balance, or burnout, and simply feel discouraged or even defeated, and if you're ready to move from force to flow and enjoy ultimate Zen success in your career, health, or relationships, then the Zen Success Show is for you. Your host, Carissa Sims, is an entrepreneur, corporate consultant, best-selling author, meditation teacher, and healer who has found her own Zen success. Here's your host, Carissa Sims.
Welcome to this week's episode of Zen Success. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Dr. R. Craig Hogan. Craig is an acknowledged expert on the afterlife and afterlife communication, president of the Afterlife Research and Education Institute, co-founder of Seek Reality Online, and author of 8 books about the afterlife and afterlife communication. And he has also spoken at numerous conferences and podcasts, which you can find on his website, Seek Reality. Craig is also the co-founder of SeekReality.com, which we mentioned. So he calls it SRO. SRO's mission is to teach people, especially baby boomers and the older silent generation, that we do not die. The transition to the next life is easy and painless. And when we awaken in the life after this life, it is much the same as the earth plane. Fascinating. We have solid bodies that are as we would have been in our prime on earth. Interesting. 20s or 30s, so we can enjoy the rich life of the afterlife. Craig also has a free online training program that teaches people how to have afterlife communication with loved ones. Welcome, Craig.
Hello, Carissa. I'm very happy to be here. I'm looking forward to interviewing with you.
Well, thank you so much. I am too. And I just feel your spiritual connection and I see it in your eyes. I can look in people's eyes and there's this certain amount of light, some brightness, a glossiness, and I'll have to say it's rare. To be honest, I've seen it in a handful of people and you are one of them. So I truly feel like energized and honored to be learning from you and hearing about what you're up to.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So where are you calling from today?
Normal, Illinois, in the middle of the state of Illinois, and our city's name is Normal, and we get all kinds of jokes about whether you have to be normal to live here, and obviously, since I'm here, you don't have to be.
Oh, that's good. So you make people feel more accepted when they come.
When they're normal. That's right.
Normal.
You're normal if you manage to get to me.
Yeah, beyond normal. It's like extraordinary, right?
That's it.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, yeah. my mother-in-law and father-in-law, they live in Hell, Michigan, so they get a lot of jokes too.
Oh, wonderful. I could imagine. Why wouldn't they change the name of the town? I can't imagine. It must be next to Purgatory.
Right.
Purgatory right down the road.
Right. And you could probably even debunk it, right? Hell.
Okay, that's for sure. There is no such thing as hell. Hell is a myth. It's a mythology that was developed by the church in the first 2 centuries after the death.
After what?
After the death of Jesus.
Yeah. So to create like a control.
That's what it was. The purpose, in fact, the pagans who wrote about the Christians at the time said the purpose of this idea of a hell myth was to keep the parishioners in line. It's to tell them that if they don't do what the people in charge want them to do, they're going to go to this fiery place where there'll be an everlasting torment. And it's a mythology. It was never true. It wasn't actually true in the first century. The earliest writings that we have of the Christian church, which are the Gospel of Luke and the writings of Peter, of Paul, the epistles, none of them mention a hell. There is no hell in their writings in the early Christian church. It developed later on. So we know that it's a mythology.
Yay. That's all I have to say, because I feel that, well, I mean, it was my opinion before I met you, and now I'm going to learn so much from you. I'm so excited that hell is what we create. And that we have the power to create anything. But let me ask you this, could somebody have this idea, although hell is made up, it's so real to them, when they die, could they feel so much guilt and shame? Like, could they be in that place?
Yeah, there are two things going on there. One of them is a person is the state of mind that they go into the next life. So if they believe that there's a hell, then they will go through a period of time in which they feel like they're being tormented, or they're not getting what they should be getting. And so they'll have the feeling that's true, but they're creating that reality in the same way that we create our reality here. And the second thing that happens is there are lower realms. There are realms on the other side where people live who are of the same temperament. So you've got your gangbangers and you've got your cruel people, and Adolf Hitler's in there, and Idi Amin is in there, and Stalin is in there. And they're living in these darker places, but they are not a hell. They're just darker. They're unpleasant. People are screaming and shouting, and they're treating each other as they did on Earth. And so they're creating that reality there, but it's not a hell.
So what do you call it? You just call it like a reality of their own making, but it's like that they're all hanging out together. So that's kind of interesting.
That's it. I mean, they're having a good time together. That's the way they wanted to live their lives. It's the same way that we have people who live in gangs today. And they want to be in the gangs, and they want to do the violent things that they do. And as a result of that, they stay with other people who do the same things. And that's what happens. It's called the lower realms, just called lower realms. And because of the fact that there are different realms depending upon people's mentalities. So when they come into the next life, if a person is like you and me, and we are genuinely loving and we're concerned about other people, then we'll go to a place that's called Summerland. And
I know Summerland. I spent my honeymoon night there.
Yeah, that's right. It's a wonderful place. All of those wonderful memories we have here when your honeymoon, those are the things we have in Summerland. And what happens in Summerland is we have our own bodies. We have solid bodies when we're there. We're doing all the things that we could do on the earth plane. We're going to concerts, and we're going to meet with our friends, and we're going bowling, and we're going fishing and going boating. All of the things that we can do on the earth plane, we can do there, but there are none of the drawbacks. There are no policemen, there are no military, there are no mosquitoes and ticks, and none of the drawbacks that we have in the earth plane. It's all wonderful, and it's even more glorious than the earth plane. There are colors there, people say, that are like no other colors they've ever seen on earth. And there are the flowers there grow profusely out in the wilds, and you can walk around and among the flowers. The flowers have wonderful odors to them, and they also have melodies. So they actually have melodies that come from the flowers. So everything there is much better than the earth plane, but it has the characteristics of the earth plane. It will be familiar to us when we go there.
Interesting. So why do you call it Summerland rather? I mean, it seems like heaven to me.
Yeah, it is heaven. And the Theosophists, a group of people who combined theosophy and religion, had called it that. They called it Summerland. And so it took that name. Why they call it Summerland instead of leaving it as heaven, I don't know. It must be the same way that we have now. Instead of UFOs, we have aerial AUPs, and it's the same thing. People just want to change the name. But the Theosophists were calling it Summerland. Other people call it level 3. We are on level 1 in the earth plane. The lower realms are level 2, and level 3 is Summerland. That's where we're all going to be going and having a wonderful time together.
That's amazing. So how did you get into this? Did you die and come back, or did you have a near death? Like how many?
Yeah, actually I'm a ghost, and I'm not real. No, what happened was I didn't
you could be.
Yeah, that's got it. I didn't believe in anything. And I actually, long ago, was a graduate professor at Wheaton College, very conservative Baptist college. And as my life evolved, I lost all of my belief in any sort of a religion. And so I believed nothing. So
Oh, do we
when
call that agnostic or
either,
atheist?
either agnostic or atheist, right?
Okay.
And agnostic believes that we just don't know. We couldn't know what is there. Not, and Gnostic means no, agnostic. And the atheist, though, says, no, no doubt about it. There is no God. There never was a God. There never will be a God. And so they are godless, completely godless. So they are both atheists and agnostics. But I was in a period of time when I was not thinking about it. I wouldn't have called myself anything. But at that time, I didn't belief system, and that was when I had the turn of my 50th birthday.
I'm 50. I just turned 50 about a month ago.
Magic time. This is the magic time. So
it's magical. It is
magical, and that's what they're saying. They're saying that there are many differences in life today because people are living into their 50s, and people are making their discoveries in their 50s. So they're having life-changing events happen. So I started meeting psychics and mediums. They were just coming into my life all over the place. I'd never met one before. And then here they are coming into my life. And so I met with a medium, a psychic medium. And she said to me, you know what? You have psychic ability. You will be able to see things at a distance just by closing your eyes and looking at them. You'll be able to hold things in your palm with that are face down. And you'll be able to tell what they are. So I went home and decided I would try it. And so I was holding playing cards in my hand. They were face down. And I would take one and I would put it on my palm. And if it was warm, she told me, then it meant it was red. If it was cold, then it was black. So you would make a different pile. I would take the card off of my palm without looking at it and put it in a pile, a black pile. And the others I would put into a red pile. And so I went through probably 25 or 30 cards in this way and got tired of doing that, lifted them over, and every one of the black pile was black. So I was able to sense them, and I knew that they were all black cards. And same on the red pile, except for one. Every one of the red pile was red. And the reason for that is because we're fooling our minds. It's called scrying, when we fool our minds into believing that something's there, it's not there. And that allows the messages to come up from the subconscious. And our subconscious knows everything. In our subconscious is all of the knowledge of the entire universe. So our subconscious knows which card is laying on the palm. That bubbles up, but we couldn't allow it to bubble up by saying, well, I think that's a red card. Instead, we trick our subconscious and say, well, this card feels like it's warm, or this card feels like it's cold. And that tricks the subconscious to allowing the messages through. So then I found out that I have remote viewing ability. I can sit in my office in Illinois and I can look at something in New Jersey on somebody's desk, and I can describe it for them. I can draw it for them and then send it to them, and they send me the picture back. And sure enough, that's what it is. So when I discovered that I had psychic abilities, then I knew that there's much more to life than what we see. And I also knew that the mind is not in the brain. The mind couldn't have done that. I couldn't have seen something in New Jersey if my mind had been encased in the skull as 3 to 5 pounds of tofu, like, mush. And so what that told me was that once the body dies, then the mind just keeps on going. So then I started visiting with mediums, and I started talking to people who were in the field, and I discovered even more and more that this is true, that we know, there is no doubt about it. It is a fact that we continue to live after the body dies. We do not die. There is no death, and there are no dead. And so the more I learned about it, the more I wanted to teach people. And that's when I started really delving into it and trying to bring up whatever I could to understand it. And then I could teach people about this wonderful, wonderful news that you will never die. You will come to the end of this life and graduate just like you would if you were on the stage graduating from college. And you go on to the next life, which is full of wonderful adventures. So that's the story of how I came to where I am now.
Oh, that's amazing. Did you ever work for the police to do remote viewing?
No, I have never done it. Some people are doing it. They're doing remote viewing, and they're also doing it in archaeology to find archaeological sites, and
Oh, cool.
and all of the information, every piece of information, everything that exists now or ever existed is available to us. It's accessible to us because our minds are not in our brains. Our minds are outside of their brain. They are part of that bigger reality. And
Yeah.
so our minds can access things in the same way that we can bring up a memory of somebody's face.
Yeah.
We can bring up the vision of a planet such as Jupiter. And in fact, one of the remote viewers did that. His name was Ingo Swann. And he remote viewed Jupiter. And as he remote viewed Jupiter, he saw that there were rings around Jupiter in the same way there are rings around Saturn. And of course, astronomy had not found any rings there. Nobody thought there would be rings around Jupiter. A few years later, there was a flyby of a satellite, and sure enough, there were the rings around Jupiter. So it's possible to see anything in the universe. All we have to do is cue into it and say, I'd like to see this. I'd like to see Jupiter. I would like to see where my loved one is in the life after this life. And we delve into it and we can go there. We can actually find out things that we don't know about by our senses, by being there. We can find out all kinds of things all over the world. And that's exciting because it shows that we are spiritual beings. We're having a physical experience, but we're going to go on after this life and we're going to go into Summerland and have a wonderful life there.
Yeah, that's interesting. So I was just curious about the process. So say we die and we go into one of these levels like Summerland or level 2. And is there ever a point, because I always thought that it was temporary and that we can choose to jump into a new physical experience and keep living multiple lives. So I believe in past lives and that we live many lives. So, and I just wanted to know your experience and opinion or fact. I don't know what to say.
Sure. I understand. Well, thanks. Yeah. Thanks for giving me it as a fact. What I do is everything that I know comes from communication from people living in the life after this life. I don't guess at any of it. I don't surmise it. I don't get it from a guru or from some religion. Everything comes from active communication with people in the life after this life. Now, as far as reincarnation is concerned, it's widely misunderstood. And this is what we're getting from the people living in the next life. They're telling us that there is a state of mind in which we know about another person's life. And we know that because they're part of the same higher self that we're part of. Because we have a higher self that's made up of many, many individuals, thousands of individuals in the higher self. And when we're planning our lives, when our souls and our guides are planning our lives, what they do is they leaf through all of these other lives that are in that higher self. And they find things that they like to repeat or something that was unfinished and they like to take care of, or even a whole framework of another person. And they use that framework to make this new person's life that's going to grow up in Earth School. And
oh my God. I have never heard that before.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
They're telling us that consistently. And if you read any of Rob Schwartz's books, I recommend them, Your Soul's Plan and Your Soul's Gift. But Rob actually had mediums who would go into these planning sessions, would be able to go back into the planning sessions and see the planning being done for a person's life. And then they would convey that to Rob. He wrote 2 books about it. But it's a wonderful experience knowing that those plans are being made intentionally. Everything in our lives is intentional in the way in which it happens. But what happens then is when we go into this new life, when we come up in Earth School, then we grow into a new person. We were never a person before we actually entered Earth School. We grew into a person. But the framework from other people's lives that are in our higher self are part of who we are. So we can have a framework that's very substantial and that's what the past life is.
Oh, okay. Okay. Got it.
Yeah. It's actually, it's another life, but it is a past life because it's in our higher self. So we are part of that and we can relive that life of that other person, and whatever happened in that person's life can have an effect upon us in this life because that person's pattern or the framework or fragment of life has come into who we are, and it's still affecting us. So we can have a past life regression. We can go in and we can find out things about that other life. But we as individuals stay individuals throughout eternity. So the person.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah. The person whom we heard that from people who describe what happens at the upper levels, celestial levels. And they say you no longer have a need for a body. You're not interested in bodies or anything of the earth plane. You're far beyond that. But you stay as an individual all the way through the rest of your life in eternity. So we don't, like, I won't come back as an Eskimo woman with 13 children in another life. So I, as Craig, am going to continue my individual life. Although someone else who comes up after me could use part of my life as a framework, or could use pieces of my life that I didn't learn about that we need to learn in the higher self. And so then they will take over part of me, part of my life. And that's where the past lives come from. It is effective. Past life regressions do help people. And the reason they help them is because these fragments are having an effect upon them. That's what incarnation is.
Oh, I see. Now, I'm curious, when we met or before we met, did you have any psychic feelings about me, like that you were meant to teach me or anything?
No, I didn't have any psychic messages about you. I have the intention of, every time I have an interview, of trying to help people to understand, especially baby boomers who are facing their own mortality. They're looking toward the end of their life, and many of them are lost. They're fearful. They're concerned. They don't know what's going to be happening next. And what we have is a wonderful message. It's a message of the fact that they don't need to worry about that. All they're going to do is graduate and go on to the next stage of their life. It's like going in from childhood into adolescence, or adolescence into adulthood. That's all it is. It happens all at once. That's the difference in when the body dies and the person goes on. But we remain the individuals we are. We are very much alive. We have bodies in the life after this life. We enjoy life. We have fun. We joke. We have concerts where we sing. If you like boating, you can have your own boat. If you like automobiles, you can have your own automobile. And all of these things are coming to us. They're telling us this from the other side, that that's what life is like, and something we should look forward to and not worry about the process of the transition.
It's going to be amazing. It sounds like a party. It's awesome.
It's a party. It is a party. It's a wonderful party. And the transition is painless. So we don't have to worry about the transition. So that when we come to the end of our life, we may be in bed and sick, or we may be in a terrible accident. And there may be, when we're in the accident and we're coming up to it and we're feeling fear and we're concerned about what's going to be going on, and we feel pain when we're in sickness, when we're in our sick bed. And so we have pain then, but when the transition comes, pain goes away. There is no pain at that time. And there's one marvelous story of a man from South Africa named Swain, and he's speaking from the life after this life. He's speaking in the next life. And he tells us that when he made his transition, he was driving in the car with his sister's fiance, who was sitting next to him. And as they're driving down the car, suddenly headlights came at them, and they didn't realize it, but it was a huge truck. And the truck then was going to hit them. The moment later, then, they felt themselves rising up out of the car. So Swain is rising up out of the car. He held his fiance's sister's hand. They rose up 30 feet above the accident, and they watched the accident happen. So we know that.
I've heard that before, out-of-body experiences.
Yeah. We have many stories like this where people tell us from the other side that when they came to the end of their life, then they came to that point at which the body was going to die. There is no pain. They don't have the shock of a change. In fact, many of them will go on and not even realize that they've crossed over into the next life. There's a man called Alf Pritchard, came through in a direct voice with Leslie Flint in the 20th century. And Alf was a soldier in World War I. And during his time in World War I, they would go into trenches, and the Germans were on one side, and then they were on the other side of different trenches. And after a while, they would go through periods in which they would jump up out of the trenches, run across and fire at the enemy, and then they would retreat, or else they would take over the other enemy's trenches. And that was called no man's land, because no man lived through that when they went through that. But he said when he passed, he got up out of the trenches. He was driving across the land. He was an Englishman. He was firing at the Germans, and he kept firing and firing and running towards the Germans. And pretty soon the Germans started running past him. And it's like they didn't see him. It's like he didn't understand which was going on. Yeah. And so then he jumped into a foxhole, an impressionist, and fell asleep. And when he woke up, he saw a soldier coming towards him. It was a British soldier, but his British soldier had died 2 months before. He knew him. And so he said to him, "You know what, chap? You have died. You've gone on." And what happened was his body had died. It was exploded. It was in pieces. But it felt like he was going on because his mind was intact. His mind was on the battlefield, was running through the battlefield, but he did not feel the pain of that transition. He did not feel the explosion. Nobody feels that. If somebody's worried about their loved one who was in a terrible automobile accident, they don't need to worry about it.
Yeah.
When they're safe. They don't need to worry about they are safe, and they didn't feel pain.
Yeah.
So if the death is imminent, if the death is going to happen, the death of the body, then they are taken out of that circumstance. The body may be laying there on the gurney. The body may be alive, and it looks like it's convulsing, it looks like it's in pain.
But their soul and spirit leaves.
Not in the body. They're already gone. And so people don't need to worry about that. If they see their loved one there and like they're in pain, they are not there. They don't have to worry about it.
And does the soul, so did you die actually, or you only have these psychic experiences and communications?
I have psychic communication with people living in life after this life. I have not gone through a near-death experience, but
you don't have to. I was just curious.
You don't have to. No, you don't. Anybody can understand this, and anybody can communicate with their loved one living in the next life. We have methods of communication. There's one method of communication used by psychotherapists, and they have the client come in, and they're in grief therapy. They're grieving for a loved one who has passed, and they sit in the psychotherapist's office, and the psychotherapist puts them into a state of mind with using EMDR. It's called eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. I
heard that really works. I have not experienced it myself, but
it's a wonderful tool. And the American Psychological Association has endorsed it. The Israeli government has endorsed it. The Veterans Administration has endorsed it. And what it does is it opens the mind. It changes the mind when they go through this therapeutic process. And so it's being used in PTSD especially. But when it changes the mind, when it opens the mind, that also opens the mind to afterlife communication. So the person living in the afterlife can come through because they're in that state of mind. So psychotherapists will sit the client down and will put them into this state of mind, and they'll have their own afterlife communication. This afterlife communication can last for hours. And they talk with their loved one, they touch them, they kiss them, they spend time. They can go walking on the beach in their minds with them. And all these things are real. They're so real. The person realizes that they're real, that when they come into the session, they rate their grief at being a 10 on a 10-point scale, really strong. Or they even say 10 plus, plus, plus. When they walk out of that session, that one session in which they had an afterlife communication, their grief has reduced to a 0 to 3 on the 10-point scale.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah. And the incredible thing is that the grief therapy is simply ineffective. Grief therapy does nothing for people who are suffering grief. But this does, when people go through this, because they've actually had a communication with their loved one. They don't have to grieve anymore. They know that they're alive and well and waiting for them to come to have a reunion. So their grief changes. This is the only method that actually reduces grief, and it reduces in one session.
That's incredible. So I'm going to share a little bit about myself. When I have spirits that come to me during healings, when I'm working with a client. And so I'm getting, now my heart's like expanding. what I'm getting a greater understanding of what I'm doing, because sometimes these spirits are with someone attached to them and I'm ascending them. So I thought I was ascending them to heaven, but now I'm learning about the realities from you. I'm really just transitioning, making them awake and aware that it's time to transition.
That's
And no one, like, there have been spirits that are not ready. I guess they're maybe in level 1 or 2. They don't want to leave. So that's kind of interesting too, because I thought that they would always want to go to Summerland now that I learned about it from you. What do you think?
Yeah, if they knew what Summerland was, they would want to go, but they're not. These people are called earthbounds. And the earthbounds are no longer in the body, but they stay on the earth plane. So they walk around on the earth plane. They can take buses. They can visit their friends. They can go to bars, whatever it is that they wanted to do. They wish they could do that if they were still in the body, but they can go around the earth plane and spend time on the earth plane. And they spend as much time as they want to. And as you say, some of them are afraid. Some of them are afraid they're going to go to hell. And so they don't want to leave the earth.
Right.
They don't want to go on to the next life. When they go on to the next life, it's called the second death. And the fact that the person first comes out of the body and is no longer in the body, and then goes on to that next life in Summerland or wherever they're going to be. So that there's a second death there. But when they first come out of the body, when the body is no longer being used, their mind is active. It's free. They have clothes on, and they can walk around. And some of them, when they get dissatisfied with that, they don't like that, and then they become mischievous. So,
yes, I have seen that they're not always for our highest and best good. I've seen ghosts and in houses and other places. It's so interesting when I'm talking to you. I get all these like hits to my body. Like first it was in my head, then it was in my belly, and now I'm feeling it here, but now it's gone. Really interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. I can't imagine. But it's a wonderful ability that you have. It's a God-given ability. We are all part of our universal intelligence. So there is nothing but our universal intelligence. That's consciousness. And that consciousness is God. And we are all part of God. We are all one with God. And so some of us you have special abilities you were given in the planning stages before you were born. You were given these abilities, and your life then was going to be a life of service, and that's what you're doing. And so then you're fulfilling your role that was planned before you were even born.
Yeah. And maybe I could do more of it too. I find myself not shouting off the rooftops of those abilities about that and spirits and everything. And so I admire you for really having this platform. And that is part of the reason why you wanted to start this organization, the Afterlife Research and Education Institute.
Yes, right. So we started the Afterlife Research and Education Institute to support the people doing this work. So we're actually out there trying to support the mediums and the researchers and the people who are teaching about this, and we're supporting what they're doing. Then we formed seekreality.com, and seekreality.com, we want to be a place where people can go to learn all of these things about this life, about the life after this life, and about the transition, and about how to communicate with their loved ones. Their loved ones are very involved in their lives. They come to them, they spend time with them, they're at parties when they're there, or they're at anniversaries, they're there with them, and people just have to learn how to communicate with them. They are communicating, they're always communicating with them.
Where they might be communicating, like leaving something out in nature or through another person, right? Or the radio or something, right?
Yeah, they do that. They communicate through the radio, through having feathers laying around, coins laying around. But more important than that, they actually communicate in messages. So they actually give us messages. But the problem is the messages come into our subconscious. They come into our lower level of our minds. And our awareness, where we are getting things, where we understand things, is very small. It's only, it operates at about between 40 and 120 bits per second, which is very, very small. And that means we can only listen to one conversation at a time, for instance. That's all that our awareness can handle, just one conversation. So when our awareness is filled with things that are going on in our lives, we're doing this, we're rushing here, we're doing that, we're watching television. All of these things are filling that little tiny awareness that we have. So the messages can't come through from our loved ones. So we're trying to get them through to us. And so,
you said they can't come through because we're so busy.
That's what it is.
And not paying attention and just numbing ourselves really with like alcohol and drugs and TV, and all of that kills our connection. I totally get it. Yep. My heart's like, yep, you're right.
Yeah. And it's rather like we have a vessel, we have a pitcher. And the pitcher can be filled with things from the life after this life, or things like what's on somebody's table 1,000 miles away. All of these things are available to us, but our pitcher's full because of the fact that we're always so involved in what's going on in our lives and the sensory experiences of what's going on. So what we do is we teach people how to quiet the mind, how to quiet that awareness, that little awareness, so that then those messages can bubble up. And when we do that, when they begin to do that, then they get the messages from their loved ones. 86% of the people who go through the training program that I developed can do that. And then after they have begun to do that, then their loved one knows that they can communicate. And so they continue to communication. They really make a point of communicating with them. So many people say to me, well, right after Jim died, I thought that he was around. I could feel him. I thought for sure that he was here. And it was just a few months later, and I just don't feel him anymore. I don't know what happened. And what happened was that Jim was not able to get through to them. It's like you can't keep talking to somebody and have them just not in any way respond to you. And you're not going to keep up that. And so then they go on with their lives. They're still available. They receive our thoughts, they receive our feelings. So wherever they are, if we're thinking about them, if we're in dire straits, then they will come to us. They'll either do it mentally. In other words, they'll come to us by coming into our thoughts, into our feelings, or else they actually come physically into the earth realm, and they'll stand with us when they know that we are distressed or something is wrong. So they will still come to us when we think about them, but they don't try to communicate if we don't respond. So if people learn how to communicate, and we can teach them how to do that, then the people who are in the life after this life, they will respond, they will communicate more, and there will be an active dialogue. We call it a new relationship. This is a new ongoing relationship with the person living in the life after this life. And some people say they have a better relationship now than they did when they were on the earth plane. There were too much baggage. There were too many things that they didn't like about each other. But now that the person has gone on to the next life and they've learned how to communicate with them, they have a great relationship.
Yeah, that's true. My father has passed on, and he loved me in the best way he could. But I think there was a lot of fear with the way that he could connect with me. And just now he came to me and said, I love you. And so, and it's like, and he didn't talk like that. He tried to show me that he loved me by doing things like traveling with me or doing things together. But you're right. It's just different. It's like they're free, and it's like they're just, it's very simple. The communications that I get, like with my clients, if they can't connect with their loved ones, they're just very simple things.
Yeah. And the communications come all at once. So the messages come and they're dropped in. And when they're dropped in, they don't come in strings of words. They come as whole messages. And that's what we have to teach people to get, that they're listening for words when they're sitting quietly and they're trying to connect with their loved ones. They're waiting for words to come in strings. And when
it's a message. I see.
It's a message. It drops in the whole message. They get the whole message. Now they may convert that into words in their mind, but the whole
so that's what I'm doing then, huh? I'm creating. I'm translating it. Yeah.
It's dropping in, and then you're translating it, right? Bringing it into words. Words are very, very small. They're tiny in our awareness, and they really limit what we get. Once we get words in strings and and it's just so boring. Oh my God.
It doesn't even compare. So people can hire you for help?
Yeah, we make everything available, everything that we can do. The Afterlife communication teaching, the training that we do is free. So we invite anybody to get online and go through the training. There are 7 stages that you go through in the training. And then if someone will fill out the stages, there are diaries at the ends of the stages. If they'll fill them out, I will respond. So I will coach them in making their connection. And it's something anybody can learn. Anybody can have wonderful connections. And now we have people who get on every day. It's just a matter of course. They get on and they relax their minds to enter this state of mind, and they have a wonderful communication with the person who's living in the life after this life. And some have written books as a result of that. We have many books written by people on this side of life with the aid of the person on the other side of life who's giving them the information. And they're wonderful books.
But that's amazing. So do you recommend everybody communicate with spirits? Do you recommend that? Like that is the evolution of humanity, dare I say? Absolutely. We need to connect because that's how we can be free and feel free in our lives.
Well, yeah, and it's a different world. We must communicate. We should be communicating with all of our loved ones. And when people learn how to do this differently, when children are brought up to communicate, so the child is sitting around at the breakfast table and the father's sitting at the breakfast table and says, I have a sense that grandma is here. And then the mother will say, well, pull up a chair and we'll let grandma sit there. And the child will see that chair and will say, I think grandma's telling me now that she loves me. And they get used to this idea that they can communicate with loved ones living in the next life. Then that will
instead of making them feel like pushing it away because there's so much fear. I mean, that's like society, though, has put all this like darkness on ghosts.
Yeah, it's terrible what society has done, and it's gotten worse in the 20th century and into the 21st century. There's the notion that the death of the body then has to do with ghouls and ghosts and things that are tragic, and that's not what it is at all. It's just a gentle transition. People say they make the transition. They didn't even realize it happened. And then when they make the transition, then they may then in different circumstances, they may make the transition and be standing next to their body that's lying there. They make the transition and go to sleep, and they don't even realize they've made it, and they awaken in some other circumstances. Many of them go to what's called, it's like a convalescent hospital. And when they arrive there, then they wake up, and it has no walls and it has no ceiling, but it has a lot of beds and people are around there. There are people who look like nurses, they're attendants, they're helpers who help them. And then they learn then that what's happened to them, that they have passed away, and they don't realize it. It's so real. How could this be real? They think they've gone to another hospital someplace. And so then after that, then they can meet with their loved ones and continue with their lives and the life after this life. There's one story of a woman who had awakened in one of these beds in this convalescent area. And there was a little girl next to her, and the little girl looked very healthy. She couldn't figure out what was going on. And the woman who was in the bed, she thought she was dying of a terrible disease. She had a disease that was killing her body, and she finally succumbed to it.
But this is still on the earth plane?
No, this is in the next life. So this is where...
Next life. Yeah. Okay. Just want to make sure.
Yeah. She awoke in this convalescent area. And she had been sick, and she awoke and she felt fine. She couldn't figure it out. She's gone to another hospital. She knows she's in a hospital, but but she doesn't know what happened. She feels so good. And there's a little girl next to her, and the little girl is just a beautiful little girl, and she's playing with toys, and her face is glowing, and the woman says, "What happened to you?" And she said, "I have pleurisy." And that was a death sentence at that time when the little girl died. And so she passed away, and she was there, and she was in the convalescent area. And so then a little bit later, the woman looked off in the distances. There was her sister coming. Her sister was named Kate. And she just said their wonderful words. She said, and Kate started coming to me, "But that can't be Kate. Kate's dead." And so then Kate came to her, and she said, "Come on with me. I'm going to take you downstairs." And she said, "No, I can't. I'm in my nightgown." And she said, "No, I dressed you." And so then she looks down, and she had wonderful, beautiful clothes on. And so she said, "How'd you do that?" And I said, I did that with my mind. And she said,
"Oh, beauty."
She said, "Can I learn how to do that?" And she said, "Yes, you'll learn how to do that." And so she took her down then to the next floor down. And it was a beautiful garden, and she met with her loved ones there and had a reunion. So that when people make the transition, it's just easy. There's no pain involved in it. It is a very quick transition. If a person's in a coma, they've already gone. If they have Alzheimer's, they've already gone. So
now I've never heard anyone say that either.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you've written so many books. I mean, you have so much wisdom. You've written 8 books. So what do you recommend people starting with?
I think that they should start with the reasons beyond a reasonable doubt that you will never die.
Okay.
I think they need to read that book, because that's the important message. There are 15 areas of proof that they will never die. There are links to recordings that they can listen to of people from the life after this life speaking about their lives there. And it's a book that really opens people's eyes to the reality. And the other 2 books that I recommend are my 2 books with questions and answers in them. One is called Answers to Enduring Questions About Your Life and Your Afterlife. And the other is Reasons for What Happens to You in this life and the afterlife. And those are full of answers to questions, all kinds of questions. Like
that's amazing.
If you had 2 spouses, who do you live with in the next life? And what happens to stillborns and miscarriages and abortions in the next life? And answers to all kinds of questions that people ask. So I'd recommend that those 3 books. And
okay.
The 2 technical books, if somebody would like to go into more technical, is There Is Nothing But Mind and Experiences, which says that this is all consciousness. There is nothing but God. We are facets of God. And so that book explains that. And then the other book is Your Eternal Self. And it has the data to show that the mind is not in the brain. And as a result of that, then when the brain dies, we just keep on going. So I'd recommend those books.
Yeah. I know what I really resonated with as far as the titles was reasons for what happens to you in your life. And, and you're saying about miscarriages and abortions. I think that would be really healing for people, because I know moms who have experienced that. Mm-hmm. And, and to know, like, what's the higher purpose of that would be so healing.
Yeah, it is healing. And because these children then are born in the next life. So then if they're loved by the parents, if they're loved by the mother, then they will be born in the next life, and they will grow up there, so that when we have a reunion with them, when we come over, they will be at the age they would have been if they had been born on the earth plane. And we have wonderful stories. We have a story of a woman who, her name is Annie Nanji, and we have the recording of her speaking, actually describing this. And she described being there, she on the other side, and she had 2 children, or 2 young people come up. They were in their 20s. 2 young people came up to her, and they greeted her as their mother. And she couldn't imagine what had happened. And then she recalled she had 2 miscarriages. And so their names were Sybil and Peter. And she then realized what had gone on with them, and they went on to live together in the life after this life. And then her husband, when he passed, he went on to live with them. So there are wonderful stories about nobody needs to worry about an abortion, a stillborn, or any person who has had a miscarriage that person, if they were loved, they're alive, they're living in the next life, and people can actually communicate with them now.
And what about, I know we can get the answer in your books, but what about murder?
Murder is not in the person's plan. No murder is ever planned before the person is born. Murder is what they call it is free will gone awry.
Free will gone awry. Interesting.
Yeah. So what happens is that when the life is planned, a person's life is planned, they may have a plan for being a person who is given to violence, that they want to have experiences, they want to learn lessons. So they're going to be a person given to violence, and they may even have a condition, like they may have bipolar, schizophrenia, or they might have paranoid schizophrenia. And so they've decided ahead of time they're going to have these conditions, and they will grow from them. They'll learn from them. They'll become all that they can become. And these are difficult positions to be in, but they are real obstacles to be overcome. And that's what they decide they want to do when they come into the earth realm. But they have free will. And when they come into the earth realm, if they use that free will, they may end up killing someone or killing themselves.
Yeah.
Those are not in their life's plan. Those are free will.
I see. But they could still end up in Summerland if they have that consciousness of love. I mean, I don't know. I mean, sometimes people feel like they don't deserve to go to Summerland or something, so they might end up in level 2.
No, that's not true. It doesn't have to do with whether they believe that they belong there. It's their state of mind.
The state of mind.
The person's state of mind is they're cruel, they're violent, they hate, are full of anger and hate. Then they will be with other people who are like that in the lower realms.
Okay.
That's only because of the condition of their mind. If a person is about to pass away, or they're worried about a loved one who's passed away and wondering if they're in the lower realms because they thought that there was a lower realm or something, that's not what happens. That only happens if it's actually their state of mind, not if they have the fear of being there. So we know that's true.
Yeah. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you for explaining that. So what is, I know we've been talking about so much about spirits and all this amazing research. And what about success? What do you feel, since the name of the show is Zen Success? And I just have this feeling like, oh, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. We are being successful in our life's plan. And when each one of us is learning the lessons we need to learn, that means that we encounter obstacles and we overcome them. We go through, we learn from them. If we would draw back and shrink back and don't encounter things and out of fear, then we're not fulfilling our life's plan.
I see.
Learned a lesson from that. The second thing in our lives is that we're here to learn to love and have compassion. So we're here to learn how to have more regard for other people, love for other people, other-centeredness in which we do for other people more than ourselves. We're here to learn how to do that. If we're learning that, then we're successful. If we're not learning that, then we've still got a ways to go. There are no failures in Earth School. Everybody's an A+ level because we're at the level. But we're not learning how to love and be compassionate, if we're not going out to other people, if we're shrinking from it and staying in our shells, then we're not being successful. That's not what we're here for. And the third reason we're here is just to have fun.
Yay! Let's end on that.
This world is a wonderful world, and we should be having fun while we're learning lessons and growing in love and compassion.
Woohoo! I love it. It's been such a pleasure connecting and hearing about all of your wisdom, your incredible books and research. And I'll put your website and how to order your books in the show notes. So thanks for being on my show today, Craig.
Thank you. It's been a wonderful experience.
That's it for today's episode of Zen Success. Head on over to iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, or wherever you listen to shows. Subscribe to the show and share with friends. Be sure to head on over to ZenSuccessShow.com to help you on your Zen success journey, and join us on the next episode. May you find your own Zen success in life.